we go. It's YouTube. Sometimes YouTube is weird. Anyway, we will be on Facebook. So let's see, setting up your mate. And I'm going to be cutting and pasting, and you can hear what we're doing.
Okay, sounds good.
That's great. All right, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. And just getting stuff here today. And before we start, I'm just going to make one more adjustment. Tell me if you hear. Do you still hear me talking?
Yeah, it's breaking up a little bit, but
Breaking up a little bit.
yeah.
Okay. I think I fixed my my problem. So anyway, well, okay. So the first thing is I actually don't know how to pronounce your name. So you have to tell me, how do I pronounce your name?
It is Tadeu Coelho.
Okay, so I knew I was pronouncing it incorrectly. Tadeu, right?
Tadeu, Tadeu Coelho.
Coelho.
Perfect.
Where are you from?
Originally, I'm from Brazil.
So that is a Brazilian
Portuguese.
pronunciation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's Tadeu Coelho.
Perfect.
Right, okay. I I've had a little bit of experience with Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, but it's always interesting to hear more and more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, so ladies and gentlemen, for those of you listening, so I met Tadeu from Stephen Nachmanovich, who you've heard me speak of a lot, and I interviewed Stephen, and he's one of my kind of guru mentors over the years. I first got his book, Free Play, when I was in college. So he's not that much older than me. So he had just put it out, and it was like a Bible for me, It was one of those books I opened up anywhere and it was like talking to me.
Mhm.
I kept my first book too. I have it marked totally up.
Yeah, yep, me too. It's pretty amazing, that book.
Yeah, yeah,
Second book, it's
yeah.
the same line. Yep.
Yeah, and it's great because you can see how his mind has kind of expanded, and grown. Yeah. So, and how did you meet Stephen?
Well, Stephen, when I began doing free improvisation, I did, and after reading his book, I found out that he was in Virginia, not far from where I live. I live in North
Oh,
Carolina. So I contacted him and
yeah,
I asked if he would be available for a lesson, a chat, or something.
yeah,
And he said, "Come on up," And I went up, and I had this amazing opportunity to work with Steve in his home, in his studio, and it was just you know a transforming experience that it was everything and more than what I was looking for, you know. And then through a series of grants that I got I work at the University of North Carolina School of the Arts in Winston-Salem, and I got a faculty grant, and I was able to bring Stephen to Winston-Salem, to UNCSA, and where he taught a class for my students. I had begun a class on free improvisation, so things just evolved like that, and we end up collaborating in a concert there. And it's just been amazing experience. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's how we
I
met.
I brought him to Los Angeles, and Santa Barbara for a few things, and we went to Idlewild, which is like a school camp up in the mountains,
Uh-huh.
and for high school, our
Yeah.
arts high school people. So we had a multidisciplinary meet workshop happening. So there were instruments, singers, dancers. They were
Yeah.
all on stage. It was a very nice stage, and Stephen came out and he didn't say anything. He just stood there with this, joyful Stephen look, and he just looked at everybody. And a few minutes passed, and I think a guitar player started playing, and then a dancer, and they had never done things with each other. And then a dancer started dancing, and and that was how it went, which I thought was so great, instead of standing there, da, da,
Yes.
da, 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 just
Yeah.
like an invitation, it was great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really nice to see when people don't know what to do and then all of a sudden they just let their creativity just speak, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's really great. Yeah, you kind of have to, as a teacher, you kind of have to assume that people are smart and it, they have an innate thing in them or things that will come out, and you have to just kind of have to have faith and patience and let it happen sometimes. I mean, of course there's students that you have to kind of drum in things, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, if you just open this space, you create a safe environment for them to just, experiment. I think that that's pretty much our job, with students to create that safe environment where they can express themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really great. Yeah, I had a 5-hour scat class Saturday, and I wanted to do a longer one than I usually do my workshops for about 3 hours, but I
Uh-huh.
wanted to do a longer one, and I wanted to kind of be able to go over certain actions that
Uh-huh.
I consider crucial to scat, like chromatic scale, which a lot of singers are not that familiar with. Yeah, I mean, classical singers usually are, but other type of singers, they just don't think about it. Nobody teaches them about it. They don't consider it. But chromatic scales are wonderful in scatting and improvising, right?
Uh-huh.
And so for an example, I introduced that and then I talked about other things. Then I brought the chromatic scale back in,
Uh-huh.
introduced more, chromatic scale back in,
Nice.
so
Yeah.
that when they left, they felt like they got it. They went home with the ability and the knowledge that they should work on that. And,
Uh-huh.
so it was great. 5 hours. I mean, it's a long class, but I felt that was a really good one.
Nice.
Yeah. I create crazy workshops. I've done it for years.
That's great.
So, let's see. So your music, I'm guessing, and you just tell me if this is true. I'm guessing that you did classical. You came in through classical flute, and then somehow decided to do improvisation.
That's right. That's right. Um, my whole training, I began when I was 5, and it was all classical. Um, I grew up in Brazil, went to a music conservatory. My father was the director of the music conservatory.
Oh,
He also happens to play the flute, so probably that's why I chose the flute. My other brothers, one plays the oboe, the other one bassoon, the other one plays clarinet.
oh boy.
So all winds. And when it was time to go to the university, decided to come and study in the U.S. Went to SUNY Purchase and got my bachelor's degree. Then went to Manhattan School of Music, got my master's and my doctorate in flute performance. Decided to stay in this country. Got a job in New Mexico. From New Mexico, went to Iowa, North Carolina, and here's why I am. And uh, in this journey, um, after uh, my second wife passed, um, I was in a period of life that I was very, very sad and very alone. And so I decided to get out of the house. So I joined an experimental group.
Huh.
And in this experimental group, when everybody was just improvising, free improv, I met my third wife, and, and we
Nice.
met improvising, and that's how it started. And she was doing already, had some experience already doing free improvisation.
What does she
And
play?
she is a singer, she's a conductor, choir conductor,
Okay.
and she is my ex-wife now, so moved rather quickly. But it was through her that I met Stephen, because she was already using his book, and free improvisation has been, since we met, has been a major part of my life now. And I see this as a capstone into my career, that it was the thing that I was looking all my life, and I just didn't have a word for it.
Yeah.
It was is this freeing experience. When you're playing classical or anything, you can be in flow, and I'm always in flow when I perform. But there is something to be said about free improvisation that is so liberating, and makes you so vulnerable, because you can't bring anything into life that is not already inside of you. And as a classical musician, you spend so many years perfecting your technique, your sound, effects, but you're tied to a piece of paper in front of you. And free improvisation, I think, is that thing that bridges us from the performing arts to the creative art, of the part of not being just the performer. In many ways, I believe that a performer is also creative, because is doing his or her own interpretation of the music.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you become that vulnerable that you start improvising, uh,
Uh-huh.
then it puts you in a different level of vulnerability. And I think that that is something that it was very timing for me in my life, that
Yeah.
brought me to more of to the present moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a really fun gig yesterday, but I haven't been gigging all that much recently. I mean, it's kind of a few times a month, which, as I was growing up, I was, a lot more than that.
Uh-huh.
And I guess the pandemic, of course, put a kind of a block on that. And then afterwards, I got back into it, but it just seemed less. And I'm older, maybe that's it too. But so yeah, the thing I'm I'm really familiar with improvising with other singers. I have a group called Fish to Birds that I worked with for 8 years. There's like 6 or 7 of us, and we're all at a level of professionalism that we just fall into working together. We'll you know maybe as we're improvising, we're all listening and but doing our own expression, maybe harmonizing with somebody for 8 bars or whatever it is, and then going away. So I'm very familiar with doing that, and but also I'm a jazz singer, so improvisation is it's not only scatting, of course, it's within the music, listening and responding and having ideas. So yeah, it's I was just thinking though that like when you do a gig, and it's probably true for you too, that's not improvisation. It always takes a moment to arrive, you know, in the moment and with your vulnerability there, even performing the music that is on the paper. You have to come from there if you're an artist, a good artist. And but improvisation is, I think it's a little easier to start. I don't know if you feel that way, but I just feel like, well, maybe it's because I've done it for so long, but it's, well, no, I don't think that's it because I've been singing since I was 5. But so yeah, it's just that it's a safe space because it's my space and I can create anything I want. So starting off is it's fun to do that. I,
Oh,
you
yeah, yeah.
know,
Yeah, I think that one major difference that especially with the the students, I hate to call students, they are all artists, but
yeah,
is that they feel that, you know, where is my page? They don't feel the safe, they don't listen to internally to express what they are listening internally. So it takes a little bit of practice in order to be able to do that. But once you break the ice, let's say, I think you start listening to your own voice, then I think it's more rewarding in many ways because you're creating on the spot, this spontaneous music that you're creating right there. And you have total control, um, except that you are also responding to another artist on stage. And usually, when I do free improv, it's not just solo free improv, it's together with other people. And that's part of the fun because you have no idea what's coming out from the other person and you're responding to that. And to me, that is so motivating. It's like invigorating, just like a conversation that we are having now. I have
yeah,
no idea what you're going to ask me or what you're going to say,
yeah,
and how do I respond to that? It's how do we keep that energy level? How do we keep the excitement? How the interest? So it becomes so much fun, right?
yeah,
And yeah, it's different when you're playing already a script that has already been written by somebody,
yeah,
and people already kind of expect to go in a certain way. Although as a performer, we always have our, let's say, our tricks,
yeah,
things I'm gonna do it differently just because I can.
yeah,
I was listening to that CP Bach and then it brought some smile on my face. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so much faster than I thought I was playing. And it was like, why did I try to play that fast? It's because in the moment you don't realize you're just involved with it and it just happens that way. So in many ways it's similar to free improv, you know. But um but it's not there is a very nuance. The nuances are different, because you in free improv you have to create everything. You have to create emotion, you have to create the emotion, the character, um, the articulation, the dynamics, and the timing. It's also, you are under control. You're not on a 4/4 or 3/4 or 2/4 where people are expecting that the post should be,
yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's what was I going to say? Well, I was contemplating. You've never played with Ellen Burr, probably.
No,
You
no,
know you know her, right? She's a friend of Stephen's.
no, I don't think I
Oh, she lives here. She's an
know.
improvisational flutist.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay.
She's really good.
Oh,
Yeah,
wonderful.
she's an excellent flutist, and
Uh-huh.
um, her improv chops are great. She's just she's really eager and open and competent.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's very very nice. Yeah. So I forget the other brilliant thing I was going to say. Oh gosh. And are you in your repertoire, are you basically classical and improv, or do you have also Brazilian
No,
music or jazz or
yeah, I feel like, an imposter of playing Brazilian music in many ways because I have lived in this country now for a lot longer than I lived in Brazil.
Oh,
But I grew up playing Brazilian choro music, which is
oh, yeah.
popular music, and um, but I love playing choro. And I used to have a quartet, flute, two guitars, and percussion. It's called Quarteto Vivace Brasil, and we toured the U.S. a couple of times, and yeah, and we played all sorts of music from classical all the way to choro and bossa nova, and you know. But yeah, I think mainly classical and free improv are the lines that I would say that I feel most comfortable. But I love playing choro. You know, choro music is it's
Joyful.
it's
Great.
yeah, it's something speaks very deeply with me. I don't know if you know, but historically, choro in Brazil was also part of what we call serestas. When, especially in smaller town where I come from in Brazil, in the evenings, late in the evening, a group of musicians would go throughout the town serenading the homes of beautiful women. So we would start maybe 11:30 p.m. and we would just go playing the streets, this serenades, and we'd stop in front of a house that we knew that somebody lived there. And we would just play several songs until they opened the windows and opened the doors. They would invite us to come in and they feed us, you know, and then you drink a little bit more. And then you move on. You go to another's house, another beautiful, you know, home, and we keep the whole night. You keep doing this. This is called siestas, right? And I grew up doing that.
Oh, wow.
I think I was. I'm not sure that they do that anymore in my hometown, but there was for historically there was a tradition, and even in São Paulo, big city, São Paulo or Rio, they would do that, you know. But I grew up doing that, and I
Wow.
don't very many people nowadays can say that they have done that for a series of reasons. You know, now um, it's a lot more complicated. You can't just take your instrument on the street and play. Quite frequently,
Right.
you might.
I've never heard that part. I've heard a lot of different things about choro. Uh,
Uh-huh,
I have several friends who have
uh-huh,
groups with it. A, a flutist in San Francisco, an American man who has a
uh-huh,
beautiful choro group. And you might have known about him. I can't remember his name right now. I'd have to go back through my memory banks.
uh-huh,
My friend Ted Falcon he's been doing, I think for 6 years, once a month choro in the park, and
uh-huh,
he lived in Brazil for 7 years,
uh-huh.
married a Brazilian woman, and he's very smart, and he actually taught choro in
Oh,
Brazil. So
oh,
that's how much he knows, you know.
uh-huh. Yes, yes.
And also Ginga. I was at a Brazilian camp. I
Uh-huh.
don't know if you're familiar with Ginga. He's one of the ultimate composers out of Brazil, and
Wow.
who's alive actually,
Uh-huh.
and not very old. And I went to a Brazil camp, which was in San Francisco about 2 years ago, and he was playing choros, and also the camp, like you would go do something at night, and then you would be walking back to your cabin, and there's a choro group
Sure,
playing.
you're
Yeah,
playing. Okay.
yeah, and it was like, yeah, it's so, yeah, it's very touching. It's emotional and inspirational. But I never heard that story that you said, which
Uh-huh.
is really cool. And is that word like a siesta? What is that word that you use?
Seresta.
How does that spelled?
Seresta. Seresta.
Siesta.
Uh-huh.
Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Love that. That's a touch
Well,
of the
it's
past,
the
man.
tradition continued much longer in smaller towns because of it's safer for
Yeah.
you to go out on the streets at night, that late at night.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Mhm.
Love that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, and when you teach at the university
Yeah.
specifically, do you teach classical and improvisational or just
Yeah.
classical?
Yep.
You
Every
do.
spring I teach a class on improvisation,
Yeah.
improv. And let me correct myself here. I don't teach because I don't really believe that one can teach free improv. I think, like Stephen likes to say, we help, we channel their creativity to come out.
Okay.
Because I don't believe that anybody can uh, follow a set of rules and then start doing free improv. I think is the idea here is that one helps the other person to free themselves and be able to express because they can't bring anything out that they don't already have it, right? So even today we watch a video of Stephen uh, talking about what is free improvisation. So every year I revisit those videos, and we talked about it, and and that's play, So and that's what we're doing. We're playing. We're having fun. We are having a conversation.
Yeah. I remember what I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
There's a group of musicians here in LA. This organization is called Open Theater, and it was started 25 years ago by a man named Will Salmon, he was an improvisationalist, but he was an actor, and he had some instruments under his belt, and so he was like creating the whole thing. Ellen Burrs actually was a friend of his too. He passed away last year, but there's the Klein brothers, Alex and Nils, who are in kind of genres of modern jazz and abstract. It's kind of an interesting meeting of music. Yeah. So Alex and Will carried on this open gate theater and would have for 20 years, the last 20 years, they'd have the first Sunday of the month for more improvisational kind of music performances. And so after Will passed, a percussionist named Garth Powell took over with a bass player, Ren, and who was actually a student of Vinnie Golia. I don't know if you know that name. I bet you would love to check out Vinnie Golia.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a little older than me, and he's been doing this forever. I mean, I remember going to see orchestras that he put together that would just be improvisational. He would maybe, point to the group of bass
Was he doing
players.
soundscape? He was doing
Yeah, yeah,
sound coloring kind of thing,
yeah, and
directing each group to
yeah, just like, okay, you now and then,
yeah, yeah.
Vinnie Golia is really very wonderful. Anyway, and but Garth, I remember talking to Garth about this because I wondered if since improvisation, or if you want to call it improvised music, is not, I would normally just say I'm a jazz singer, but so therefore, like you were saying, a little imposter syndrome, I mean, I scat and improvise, but am I actually an improviser? But
We all
so, yeah. But I asked Garth I forget how I got into it, but I asked him if there were performances where the artists were better or worse. Like, if you're sitting and watching a flute player, for instance,
Right.
play something, and you think, okay, well, they're there, but they're not that great. And then where another person, you would think on a higher level, oh, yeah, they are really doing something great. So I was curious if that happened in the improvisational genre. And to my surprise, he said yes. So there are not rules, but let's say paths, actions that can make make you or lead you to a stronger effect. I'm not sure how to actually put it into words.
Yeah, would you say that this also could be related to how you listen to it? Like very much like, so if we start a conversation to talk about, let's say, we're going to talk about a Brazilian composer named Patapio Silva. So I can start talking about Patapio Silva and we strike this conversation, but then another person might start talking about Brahms.
Yeah.
And then how could somebody from, let's say, from Brazil, not classically trained, would then relate to a conversation to Brahms as opposed to a conversation about Patapio Silva, somebody that they would have known or some of the music have listened or have some kind of experience. So I think that it would also be in relationship to the listener, to how the background of the listener. So yeah, I can see, we could analyze technically what the person is doing with their instrument, or the voice, or the instrument, or the acting, or and there are elements that we could judge. But ultimately, I'm not so sure if on free improv we would be classifying that, or if we know the subject that they have picked in order to do their improvisation, if it will be the creative aspect of that improvisation that we would find interesting. And then I have another question. On a different day, let's say if I have a fever or if I'm not feeling very well, would I perceive that free improvisation differently than on a different day when I was feeling better? So yeah.
That's kind of that's a very obvious kind of a listening experience, right? I mean, I may be in the mood to listen to Miles Davis, or I may not be in the mood to listen to Miles Davis. Put it on, the same thing that I love, but I can't listen that day.
Yeah, and I'll do another example here. I ate the best paella in Barcelona. Okay, it was just phenomenal, and I was alone there, and it was phenomenal, and I just wanted to share that. So 2 years later, I take my daughter there because she was there in Spain, and so we meet up, and so we go there. I said, "You gotta have this paella." Same restaurant, maybe it wasn't the same chef, but the paella was good, but it wasn't that good on that day. Then I realized, oh, you can't recreate that moment, and that's the
Yeah.
thing with live music, right?
Yeah.
This happens in the now moment.
Yeah.
And if you're there in that now moment, not that the other paella, we weren't there in the now moment, but I was living in the past. I
Yeah.
was referencing my past experience
Yeah.
and wanting to be, as opposed to enjoying the now moment that I was there. So I think I missed out on the now moment of being there with my daughter,
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
I've experienced that. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. It's very interesting. I really like to be in the now because, especially in these
Yes,
times are so bizarre.
these are
And you can
bizarrissimo.
easily, yeah, you can easily get sucked down this weird rabbit hole
Oh my gosh.
of looking, like something happens and flash, you look at a whole bunch of stuff there, which is not right here.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's yeah, so the moment really does save us. It's really good. I listen to a lot of spiritual people on YouTube that I like because they're constantly reminding me that,
Uh-huh.
it's about now. And yeah, so
You know what? I'm going to bring up a subject here, the idea of impermanence,
mhm,
because that has been in my mind so much, and how I have dealt, or rather not dealt with impermanence in my life before. And once we come to the realization that nothing really is permanent, you
right.
know, and all that we have, only the now is the permanent, right?
Yes, yes,
So uh, why not then just enjoy now, because that's all we have is the now moment, right?
yes, yes. It's funny. I'm going to send you a picture that I have in my living room.
Uh-huh.
My first husband was an artist, and he did this huge painting that I love, and
Uh-huh.
impermanence is written on it.
Oh, please do, please do. That's
Yeah.
my that's my thing these days. I'm contemplating
Also,
impermanence.
yeah, and also, I mean, the fires in LA,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, that's why this subject is so important to understand fully, within each one of us, because it's, yeah, it's like for those people, everything's gone, and staying in the moment and moving forward is pretty much the saving grace.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think as a society in general, we don't do a very good job
No,
to teach our children, our kids, that nothing really is permanent. And how do we deal with it?
yeah,
And, I think we should go to school to learn about
I
impermanence,
do too.
you know, and
Yeah,
make our lives perhaps a little easier to navigate later on, when it
I I totally do. I've thought of that a lot over the years, that and communication, in
yeah,
school. Like, wow, how do you communicate, through anything? That would be valuable to teach growing people,
right,
really
right.
valuable. Yeah, it's yeah, but impermanence, I love that. Isn't that a beautiful concept?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Um, yeah, so uh your uh let's see. Do you create gigs for yourself outside of the university? Do you
Yes, yes, I was just a few weeks ago, I was in New York City giving the world premiere of Tyson Davis' work that I commissioned. I was the lead commissioner
Mm.
for the consortium. And Tyson Davis is this upcoming African American composer. He's still a student at Juilliard.
Oh,
And, he went to School of the Arts, so he's an alumn of my school. And while he was here, I played some of his wind music and helped, because as faculty, we get involved into the composition department when they ask us to perform music by students, and we do some readings and we suggest this and
yeah.
that. And so that's how I knew Tyson, and he had written a couple of solo flute pieces for flute.
Uh-huh.
So I asked him to write a piece for flute, soprano, and flute ensemble. And to my knowledge, that combination apparently has never existed before. So we created history with this.
Oh, wow.
And he based his work on Sian lyricism, work of art by an American painter. And and we just give this performance there, and I perform some other works. But going to New York City and performing for the New York Flute Club was really a treat, because it's New York City. It's one of the centers of culture and flute playing of the world, and so many other things. And to be there and to be that excitement, that's where I went to school. I went to Manhattan School of Music. So going back to the city where I feel like it's home for me, every time
Yeah.
I'm landing in New York City, I feel, oh, I'm home. But so that was a very unique experience. And and I play concerts. I get invited to go and teach master classes, clinics at other universities, and chamber music series. So we're always trying to go create gigs, like you said.
Yeah.
It's interesting that I don't think about gigs, but they are gigs. They are performances, I guess. If the word would be gigs, I just don't. The word gigs naturally doesn't come to my mind. But
Yeah, yeah, I don't, I probably doesn't that word doesn't really exist in classical performance. And what about, do you have a chance to create improvisational performances?
yes, on all of my recitals that
Yeah.
every year, I play a solo recital here, and even on, like, in New York City, I presented. I worked with a soprano there, and we did 3-minute improvisation based on words that we asked the audience to
Oh,
supply.
yeah,
So they supplied the ideas, and we did that, and it was so beautiful to capture that moment, into that improvisation is, and it's like one of my favorite things to do. So I'm always introducing the public, because the classical public, the public that goes to classical music, they don't often listen or hear they don't have the opportunities to hear free improv, because I think the majority of classically trained musicians are so afraid of improvising. I even see with my colleagues, it's really hard to get them, to do something. But once they start, then they get the bug, and then they start doing it, and then it's a lot of fun.
yeah,
But I think we need to demystify the word free improv. Um, it's so much associated with the jazz improv that the people think, oh, but I don't have any jazz training,
yeah,
so how
yeah.
can I do it? So they get afraid, they think it's the same thing, and when it's not, you know.
I've heard it called creative music.
Yeah, yeah. In Brazil, interestingly enough, they call open improvisation.
Oh,
Yeah, they use the word open, free open
yeah,
improvisation.
yeah, that kind of creates a different feeling for it. Not
Mhm.
so structured, obviously,
Right.
open and kind of like you can do what you want. I know that I think the word free is intimidating sometimes
I think so. Isn't
when
that
it comes
the word
to
free? You're
improvisation.
free to
Yeah.
do whatever you want. It's like, what? What are we?
Yeah,
Then you
yeah,
become not free, right?
right, right, right. Yeah, 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 it's really interesting. Again, just thinking of my workshop, singers are a little different because it's just a funny instrument. It's so involved with literal expression.
Uh-huh.
So you're a little more prone to self judgment, because you're saying words and you're singing phrases. And so I see a lot when singers put themselves down in the moment, they'll do something and then they'll go,
Right, right.
So, which is another reason why I like to start with the chromatic scale, because what I do is I first make sure that they can sing the chromatic scale. Then I play any chord on the piano. Doesn't matter if it's a chord or not, really. And then I have them sing each note of the scale for a little bit of a lengthy time so that they can feel the tension of the note. So the note's going to have either zero tension, 100%, 70%, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think singers who aren't familiar with tensions, they're more prone to not feel comfortable and therefore put themselves down because they're making a mistake, you know. And so I just tell them, just sit with it, and I want you to love that feeling, that, you know, what is that feeling? And just love it. You know,
Yes.
let yourself love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a
Let
good
yourself
exercise.
love it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah. It's a really good exercise. I remember Benny Maupin. I don't know if you're familiar with Benny Maupin. He's a incredible woodwind player who played with a lot of the older guys like Herbie Hancock and people like that, you know. And he's still around. And he was playing relatively often in LA over the years. And I would just listen to him and wait for those notes because he would deliver those notes within the scope of whatever improvisation he was playing, and he would just be there, and they were in such perfect tune,
Uh-huh.
and it that was a beautiful thing. I would just I would just relish it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really great. I mean, I love this discussion because it's what's needed, as we said, you know, it's really what's needed for people to lighten up and to enjoy improvisation in life and just be able to let go of things and move ahead and be in the moment. I mean, this is really what life is about, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. The letting go part is the thing, you know.
Yeah.
And I think is the letting go of self is probably the hardest thing
Yeah.
for most of us, you know, and to understand that we exist without having to think, you know, that we are not our thoughts. That to me is so important, you know, and somehow, I don't know, I think that society in general, at least our Eastern, Western society has missed out on that aspect that, you know, we just think that our ego is so important, you know, when we're not our egos. And so it's, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting time because I know that looking in the broad sense, many spiritually inclined people say that we're now moving out of an industrial age into a spiritual awareness age.
Uh-huh.
And you may not think that way when you look around and see what's happening, you know, but to remember that I think is crucial because it's kind of like you have to go through the crap to rise to the top, you know. And I think that's what's happening. I mean, I want to believe that's what's happening in life right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we live in a very strange world right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
So much of everything happening.
yeah, yeah. I know you have to leave early, and
Yeah.
thanks for talking. I knew it was going to be a nice experience speaking with you, and
Thank
thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you. You're so kind, and it's really enjoyed. I hope we can do this again sometime.
I hope so too.
And because these conversations are really invigorating, and that's what I love talking about.
Yeah. Well, have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you. You too.
Thank you. And you can leave, and I'm just going to talk a little bit more on my show. Bye
Bye.
to you. Have a great day. Well, that was Tadeu Coelho. I think I pronounced that correctly. Um, so these days, thanks, Mark. These days, I'm moving into 2 days a week of interviews. And generally speaking, they're Mondays and Fridays. I do have a Thursday coming up, but so next week on Monday, I'll have Louis Dura, who's a very wonderful and varied pianist. He lives in Berlin. And Friday, I'll have a very soulful singer, jazz singer mostly, from New York, Emily Braden. And you can always look on my website for this information, which I think I've been keeping up to date. But yeah, so I love this subject today, the subject of improvisation in life. And again, how Tadeu and I met was through Stephen Nachmanovich, who wrote two books called, one book, Free Play, Free Play, Improvisation in Life and the Arts. And then the next one was the, I always forget the second one, sorry, Stephen. Yeah, anyway, Stephen Nachmanovich. It's really, I highly recommend it. God, what is the second name of that? Anyway, so yeah, if you're interested in feeling good, this is, to me, this is the way to feel good nowadays, is to stay in the moment and be more aware, let go of thinking more, improvise, just be aware of a flow that you're not necessarily in total control of. And I think this is the way to be happy and healthy in these times. So my very best to you. There's a lot of people doing fire related fundraisers in Los Angeles right now. And so I'd suggest either going or contributing. There's one tonight at the World Stage in Los Angeles with a whole bunch of performers going on. And yeah, there's just a whole bunch of community stuff that's going on. So that's good. So I hope you guys all feel good, and I hope you enjoyed this short interview. Not normally this short, but it was nice. Have a great day. Bye.